Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and today I'm going to be recommending a collection of really fun historical romances. So I don't often talk about romance on my channel, mainly because the videos do terribly, but it does make up a huge percentage of my reading, probably around 25% a year at the moment. So it feels really remiss that I don't talk about it more on my channel, as it is really fun. And historical romance is definitely a subgenre that I read a fair amount in. Now, like I said, I'm just kind of recommending a collection of books today. These aren't necessarily favourites, they're just ones I've read fairly recently that I've really enjoyed. The first one I wanted to talk about is In Bed with the Blackguard by Cara Maxwell, and this is book one of her Lady Knight series. This one is roughly based in Victorian era. I will say most of these historical romances are kind of Regency through to Victorian, with not really much emphasis placed on exactly what time period. If they reference specific dates, I don't have the memory to retain who was in what one. Basically, the women wear corsets, people still have to come out to high society, and that's the most important thing that you need to know. But anyway, going back to Cara Maxwell's In Bed with the Blackguard, this is a really fantastic fun romp that ends up taking place primarily on the high seas, and it follows our main heroine, who is actually a secret agent for the Queen. She is a spy, and she has been tasked with getting herself captured on purpose by an enemy of the country so that she can then find out secrets about him and his sort of boss, the person who's in charge of the kind of gang type thing that he belongs to. Like I say, it ends up being on the high seas because rather than just kidnapping her, he actually kidnaps her and puts her on a ship, and then they go across the ocean to, I think, Barbados is where they're headed to, and it's about her trying to seduce him so that way she can find out all of his secrets, but also then falling in love with him not really knowing exactly what to do with her, thinking that she's sort of a silly sort of debutante simpleton, and it's about them really like learning to discover each other and then the danger along the way. I love this one. I thought it was really fun, and I loved the setup of the Queen's Guard, like Queen's Secrets, the Lady Knight concept, and it is book one of a series I am eyeing up reading more because it did the thing where it sort of definitely introduced an ensemble cast at the beginning that you know there's going to be a book for each one of them. So I'm kind of putting this on my radar for one to kind of continue in the future. I will say, from like a spice smut level, it's probably mid-range. It goes into detail, but it's not your sort of crazy graphic dark romance style detail. I actually found the smut got quite samey. There's definitely a big chunk in the middle where they're just like in each other's pants constantly, or chemise, whichever one you want to say. And for me that didn't really work very well, but I did like the ending and I really liked the plot and sort of the contrivance and the setup for this, but for me the smut itself kind of fell down a bit. The next one is the McLachlan Family series by Liz Carlyle, which is One Little Sin, Two Little Lies and Three Little Secrets are the ones that I've read. I believe that there is a short novella that potentially continues, but those are the three, the sort of beginning trilogy that I've read. I really enjoyed all three of these. I would probably recommend Three Little Secrets probably is my favourite, but basically it follows a series of like Scottish family as such, two brothers and then a family friend. Three Little Secrets, to focus on one in particular, is a sort of second chance romance of slight enemies to lovers, and it's about two people who were very attracted to one another when they were younger, and then were going to have this sort of runaway romance marriage, and they did get married, but then for whatever reason they are torn apart, and she is convinced that they got an annulment, he is convinced that she like sold him out basically, and then they bump into each other again when they're adults, and it's all about sort of the sparks that fly, both from a hostility perspective but then later in a romance perspective. I love this series. I've read other ones from Liz Carlyle and they've not really like hit the mark, and for me this is a book that I read when I was a teenager, and I think it just has a little bit of nostalgia as one of the first historical romances I ever read. Really enjoyable, love the two main characters, especially love her. She's definitely got a lot of like energy and spunk and fight to her, and I really appreciate that, and he is very much like a man with very strong work ethic, so it's really nice to sort of see someone who isn't just like a rake or a cad in these kind of historical romance settings. Although if you are looking for a rake type character instead who like learns the error of his ways, check out the first one, which is One Little Sin, because that one is 100% like rake with a heart of gold who meets the right woman and finally settles down, and I also love that book as well, so both of them are fantastic. The next one is My Fake Rake by Leigh, and this is part of a series where I have read the second one as well and did enjoy it. I preferred My Fake Rake a little bit more, and it's a wonderful fake dating trope that you'll definitely enjoy about two absolute massive nerds. So our main character, our heroine, is sort of a budding, I believe, botanist, and she basically, or she's involved in science in some way, and she desperately wants to catch the eye of a very alluring gentleman in the ton, but he is paying absolutely no attention to her and views her just as a friend. So she enlists the help of her other friend, this super nerdy, I think he's into insects, she's into salamanders, he's into insects, can't remember, again, sciencey nerd, to try and basically fake date her, or the equivalent, you know, woo, romance her, court her, to then try and make her look more appealing in the eyes of the guy who she actually wants, at the beginning anyway. So it's really fun because it's the two of them trying to work out like how to woo in high society. They have a fantastic debonair rake type friend who helps them out, who then becomes the main character in book 2, which is also excellent. And it's about them realising that they do have feelings for each other, and kind of basically being big smart dummies, you know, those people who are geniuses but really just can't get over their feelings. And it is lovely, and I love the fact that you got the representation of a woman in science in there as well, and them trying to like stumble across and sort of talk about romance and courting in very like scientific terms, and trying to almost do it as a science experiment, really leads itself to lots of very fun witty banter, which is really, really entertaining. Like I said, book 2, fantastic, goes on to the debonair rake friend. Loved it. I think this is going to be a really solid series, and I need to read more Evilly in the future. Then we have the Debutant File series by Sophie Jordan. The first one is A Good Debutante's Guide to Ruin, and this one was really, really fun. Of course they're fun, they're all fun, it's historical romance. This is about a woman who has been like promised to a certain man in marriage, and she's quite innocent, but she wants to sort of find out ways of the world, and there is a fairly infamous club that you ladies are not really supposed to be seen at, especially not unmarried ones, and she goes there with a mask on and then basically ends up bumping into the guy that she definitely has a massive crush on, and they have run-ins there, and then it's about him discovering her identity as they go through. Because of the fact you've got the mask situation, it's sort of veering, it's like tiptoeing towards the kinkier side of things. I don't think historical romance ever really goes fully down that road, but it sort of flirts with the concept of a dark romance a little bit more. And again, really entertaining, really fun banter between them, and just really enjoyable, like forced proximity, hidden identity kind of energy, and so was a good read. There, I've also read book 2 from the series, very good fun as well, slightly different vibes, but really enjoyable, and again I think a series that I need to keep an eye on and an author I need to read more from. The next one is Diana Quincy's The Marquess Makes His Move, which is actually book 3 of the Clandestine Affairs series. I've not read the other 2 because with romances they're really standalones. And this is about a gentleman who's been wronged by a family and has been cut off from a good amount of his land, and he wants to find out the bastard who did it. So he actually ends up going undercover as a footman, or like something kind of equivalent, in the house of this woman. The woman in question is very interested in maps, and is involved in map making, but she's also just come out of a really awful relationship that involved a load of physical abuse, and it's about her trying to find her way, and then in doing so fall in love with this footman, who seems to be more than meets the eye, because he seems to know more than he should about areas that he shouldn't know about, as if he is a high-class man. So all of sort of fun, like, you know, masked identity kind of energy here, and in typical kind of fashion as well, she's involved in his downfall, so it's about him kind of having to overcome that kind of enemies to lovers sort of energy. So there's some good scenes of like heat between them, and just really enjoyable, and also enjoyable to see her like reclaim her identity coming out of a relationship. Sometimes in historical romances there's a tendency for the woman in question to be a bit of a wilting flower, virginal, ingenue kind of energy. So when it's ones where they've already been married, or they've already, you know, been ruined for whatever reason, ruined is in the historical context, and so they're coming to the relationship on a little bit more like even playing field with the physical side of things, I kind of prefer that, because it gets a little bit boring reading the constant like, and she never knew her body could feel like this before kind of scene over and over again. So I appreciated this one because she was a woman of the world who knew what she wanted a little bit more, and I appreciated that. We're going to take a brief foray into Highlander romances, or basically just Scottish romances, but apparently Highlander is the term we use for them. And the first one is The Highwayman by Kerrigan B. I think he's Scottish. Maybe I've just told you a lie. I'm pretty sure he's Scottish. Anyway, this one is about a gentleman who kidnaps a woman who it turns out that they have a long and torrid past together. So this is again one of these like second chance romances, which I really enjoy. He is painted as very much the bad guy. So you've got a little bit of that like enemies to lovers kind of energy, lots of tension at the very beginning. And then as the book goes on, we discover his identity and where he's been, and she kind of discovers this other softer side to him. So not my favourite of the list, but still quite enjoyable, and I think definitely worth a read. And especially with historical romance, sometimes you just want something a little bit like light fluffy to get through, and I think this one definitely fulfills that requirement. The final book I'm going to talk about, definitely a Highlander romance, because the term Scot features in every one of these titles. It is the Wild Wicked Highlanders series by Suzanne Enoch. Specifically, I'm going to recommend Scot Under the Covers, but we do also have It's Getting Scot in Here. So, you know, we're all here for the absolutely awful puns. This is basically about a family who are in Scotland, and their mother ended up moving down south for some kind of Englishman, leaving the sons up there, and they have a lot of animosity with the British, or the English shall I say, and then basically the hero of this particular book has been told that he must marry before he can get his inheritance, or there's going to be some kind of issue to his claim. So he come down south to find this woman that his mother has promised him to, basically with the intention of telling her to fuck off and never darken his doorway again, but instead, funnily enough, he finds himself falling for the lovely woman, and finding himself a bride. The other books follow kind of similar sort of ideas. There's sort of a classic like rescuing them. There's the frantic run to Bethnal Green to get married last minute, and yeah, I really enjoyed these. I love the characters that they are, and this sort of interplay between the like rough Scottish Highlander who, you know, smells of heather and knows that he would like survive in a storm kind of energy, with the painting of the English as these very like stiff upper lip, very like stuffy men of the ton who are not proper men. So if you want that kind of juxtaposition, very entertaining, and yeah, just really fun. I do think the male characters in these books are slightly stronger than the female characters. Some of the female characters are not as interesting, but it was good fun. The smut's quite entertaining, and the series is fun as a whole. So there we have it. Those are a couple of historical romances that I would recommend. This video is going to do terribly, I can already tell, but for those of you who have both watched it and got all the way to the very end, thank you very much for watching. Do let me know in the comments down below, do you like historical romance, and do you have a specific subgenre of historical romance that you prefer? Do you have any recommendations for me? I've probably tried a good number that I haven't finished, thanks to Kindle Unlimited, because I do find romance is incredibly hit or miss for me. And I'd said when I came back to my channel I was going to be doing more romance videos, and then I got put off by the complete lack of response to my paranormal romance video. But you know what, this channel's for me, it's not necessarily for the viewers. So I am going to be putting out that romance content because it makes that such a huge percentage of my reading. It seems silly that I don't talk about it here. So expect to see more of this in the future. Have a wonderful reading week, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye.